Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Kelsey Bixler, and I'm the Director of Growth Marketing here at TouchPlan. And today we're going to be covering the topic, how owners can maximize project certainty with construction planning software. Before we begin, I do want to let you all know a couple things. So we're going to see a little bit of TouchPlan shown here today, but if you'd like a more in-depth look at the tool, we've got a couple options here for you. So our demo on demand allows you to watch a walkthrough of TouchPlan at your own convenience. We also have a live demo that's being hosted monthly. This month it's going to be on May 26th at 12 p.m. Eastern, so be sure to tune into that. And then finally, if you're looking to get your hands on the tool, want to try it out for yourself, we also have a free trial. I'll drop links to those in the chat, so be sure to check them out after the webinar. On the agenda today, so I'll bring on our host. We'll then get into an owner and contractor perspective. Talia is our owner's rep, so she's going to be giving that owner's point of view. And then Andrew is a former superintendent, so he'll give that contractor's perspective as well. We'll then get into solving project issues with collaboration, see a little bit of TouchPlan, and then finally, if you have any questions throughout the webinar, be sure to drop those in the questions box on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll be sure to get to those at the end. Now let's take a quick poll. So just trying to get a feel for who we have in the audience. So I've gone ahead and launched that. I'll give you all a second to answer. All right, and just so y'all know, if for some reason the results stay on after I've closed it out, that's not a problem. Just hit refresh on your screen, and just want to make sure that you don't have any issues with that. I got some feedback the last poll I did. Still got a couple answers coming in. All right, give it one more second. Interesting. All right, I will go ahead and close this out. And here are the results. So we've got some owner, and then we've got a lot of others. So welcome everyone. Thank you guys for taking a second to do that. And again, I have closed the poll. So if you're still seeing that on your screen, just hit refresh to your browser. It should not be a problem. But without further ado, I'd like to bring on our hosts for today, Andrew and Talia. Andrew and Talia, I'll let y'all take it from here.
All right, thanks, Kelsey. Talia, I don't know if you're able to pull up your camera or not.
Yes, I do have my camera up.
Perfect. All right, here we go. We're ready to go. So I'm on the left side, so I'll start. Hey, I'm Andrew Piland, formerly a superintendent. I was at Whiting Turner for a while. Recently made the jump over to TouchPlan, and I'm here to talk to you from my perspective on what I've seen the collaboration between owners and GCs, what it has been, in addition to provide some perspective on what I think it could be and what it could do for a project.
Yep, and I am Talia Rucker. I work out in the California office, and I am a project manager with the MoCA Systems company, and represent the owner's representative and the owner's perspective on utilizing TouchPlan. So what I see really with the owner's representative view or the owner's view of utilizing TouchPlan is that, you know, TouchPlan is a very flexible software where a lot of owners may not necessarily have any experience with high level or even detailed project planning. They really require a lot of help with understanding what a P6 schedule looks like or a project schedule looks like. And where TouchPlan comes in is that it really makes it user-friendly and able to utilize and read the program as what's going on a daily basis, a weekly basis on site, and increases greatly the ability to collaborate between the GCs, between the owner, the owner's representative, and allows great flexibility in the owner's involvement within viewing the overall touch plan software, as well as their utilization of the software. So in my experience, I'm working on the California Annex Capital at the moment, and our owner is the Joint Rules Committee. So we have stakeholders from both the Assembly and Senate side. They are not very well versed in scheduling or planning of a large-scale construction project, and require some help in understanding what schedules look like and kind of mapping out what everybody is doing on site. So in the way that we run our schedule on Touch Plan, we tend to break up smaller activities that are going on by floor, and inviting a lot of the GCs, subcontractors in to act as active members, entering in their tickets, their milestones, their constraints, etc. And the owner's representative, so my team or myself, will act as an administrator alongside the superintendents for these construction contractors and GCs, where I will then manage that with the superintendents and come to the owner and kind of run through the report, having been, let me start over. I will extract the Gantt charts, any sort of reports based on what information that they wanted to look at based on what's going on site. And so then I will walk through with the owner the information that they have specifically asked for, instead of going into the interface itself and utilizing that and having them be an active member. And that works for my current client, in that because they are not so involved in the day-to-day, they get to have an overview of what the analytics look like and what the success rate is for promised tickets. So at this time, I'd like to kind of transition over to Andrew and what his overview kind of looks like as a superintendent and contractor with Touch Plan. And Andrew, it looks like you're on mute at the moment.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Talia. So, as a superintendent and junior field management at a GC, generally what I saw, I didn't see a lot of the owner, but when I did, it could either be a great experience or a bad experience. And I think a lot of that comes down to generally creating and building both rapport and trust with the owner. And it's particularly around where the project is at a certain place, right? I think with me working with trade contractors, it's the exact same thing. It's, me as a superintendent, I need to know exactly where they are, what their pains, their wants, their needs are for that particular project, and where they are with their scope, and to be able to facilitate that. And really, you can have that same relationship up to an owner's rep or an owner, but it ultimately just comes down to a certain level of trust and being able to show and use data to back up the story that you're telling the owner. So there's this idea, McKinsey actually did a study about collaborating across supply chains, but the principles are largely the same, and they laid out 5 principles that I think very much apply to the relationship between owners and general contractors. Being strategic alignment, one, we're both in this together. We're both in this to deliver a phenomenal building that's a profitable endeavor for both of us. To establish communication and trust, to create cross-functional engagement, create value, and generally align on organizational governance. So I know those kind of 5 really kind of nebulous bullet points, but I would recommend you look at the McKinsey study about cross-supplier collaboration and the value it actually brings to a project. And it's what the point they make, though, is that it's kind of tough to do. This divide between general contractors and owners can be sort of ominous here. It's one that's can be difficult to bridge. because we're used to this sort of transactional relationship with each other. And that transactional relationship is really looked at as a cost-based relationship, whereas a collaborative relationship is more of a value-based relationship. And getting to that place is one, hard to make a case to do because it's difficult to quantify. But there's certainly qualitative benefits to it in addition to intangible quantitative benefits. But generally, what I saw was if an owner came to me and said, "Hey, Andrew, when are you going to be able to, or when are you going to be ready for me to bring in FFE? When are you going to be ready for me to bring out my generators, whatever that might be?" It was incredibly important for me to be able to give a solid answer to them, and kind of throwing up my hands and saying, I don't know, maybe in another couple of weeks is absolutely not the right answer. So to be able to give a solid answer, one, I have to have my planning process tight and my management process tight. And two, I have to be able to show them and sort of back that up, until going back to that whole concept of establishing trust across organizations. Until I can actually show them the data that's getting me to the answer I'm giving them, they're going to take it with a grain of salt, and they'll probably do a lot of running around to find out if I actually know what the heck I'm talking about. So, I've got a really quick example of that pulled up for you in TouchPlan that I can show you. And let me pull that up. I think, Chelsea, it doesn't look like I have the capability to do that. Look. But now I have present capability, show my screen. All right, fantastic. I think I'm not sure which screen we can see.
At the moment, we are viewing your web browser.
Oh, cool. You see
There we go.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. So what I'll start with here is just this looks like a plan from any other project you've probably seen in TouchPlan or otherwise. Again, the cool thing here for those not familiar with TouchPlan is that Talia and I are looking at the exact same thing simultaneously. So as I go through and have my weekly work plan meeting, I've set this milestone of, hey, everyone on Southside 4-1, we need to be ready for punch walk by next Friday. And from there, we've built our weekly work plan, right? So this is how I'm actively planning and managing the project, and Talia can see that in real time. So now let's go into an example of when I'm getting ready for paint, and I know I'm getting ready for paint, but Talia says, hey, you know what? Paint color change. The owner actually wants it to be something different. I say, hey, great, that's fine. What's our lead time on paint right now to get that specific color? And she tells me, okay, well, hey, it'll probably be ready. My supplier tells me I can have it by Friday. Okay, great. So that means I probably won't be able to start painting until Monday. And now I can go through and say, look, if we're serious about changing the paint color, here's this. If we want to move it to Monday or we want to move it to Tuesday, whatever, I'm not going to be ready for a punch walk until the next Friday. So just that quickly, I was able to back that up with, look, you've asked for a change, great. I can make that change happen, but dealing with the constraint, supply constraint, here's when I can actually be ready for you and actually deliver this punch walk. And this is ultimately, as I go through and sort of peel back the onion on the schedule, I can tell her what that's actually doing to the master schedule as a whole. But
yeah. And to supplement what Andrew is demonstrating here, when he makes those changes and pulls back all of those activities, that is a live change. So if the owner is looking at, if this is in a meeting, if the owner just so happens to be looking at the interface as Andrew is making that change, it will change as Andrew is live clicking and dropping. So the owners will be able to see that immediate change there.
Yep. And another great thing is information for RFIs and critical pieces of information that are holding up a project. So if Talia and I, as an owner's representative, superintendent, have a solid relationship and really built trust with one another, I can pick up the phone and call her and say, hey, look, Talia, I've got a constraint in this particular area I need an RFI. I need you to help me push this through the engineer very quickly, because otherwise we're going to push out the entire schedule. So I'll obviously have an RFI number assigned with it. I'll assign it to Talia, and I'll give it a need by date, very specific need by date, save. I'll drop it in here. I'll say, hey, if it's a sconce or whatever on their electrical finishes, if we can't get the right thing or whatever, I'll drop that in right here on a need by date. Talia can go over here and then search through this constraint log as a workflow. So instead of calling her and saying, hey, look, I need to know about these sconces. I need to know, otherwise it's going to push schedule, whatever. We can have a data-driven conversation around that. I'll actually create that constraint. She can see it in her workflow and be able to visually understand what exactly in the plan is going to be affected by it. And she might come back to me and say, yeah, that's not actually a priority. I'll get to that at this point. And then for me, I'm saying, okay, cool. Look, we've had this conversation. It's there, it's captured, it's tracked, to away we go. Talia, that's never happened to you, has it? When a superintendent calls you from the field and says, hey, I need an answer right now, and then you kind of peel back the onion with them? And
yeah, actually, no, it hasn't come up. I think the way that we set up our schedules, we do utilize constraints, but because we have such a visual of what's going on, it really helps hold everybody to their dates. And we also have what we utilize a lot in my end of utilizing, touch plan, is the promise and the pin. By doing that, it really locks in the dates. And, if you have any, and we might want to demonstrate it here, where if you have a date that a GC, let's say an electrical, or what do we have here, millwork, they say that they're going to install that casework on that, let's say, what is that, May 13th or May 16th, and all of a sudden something happens where they have their worker that's sick, or as Andrew is demonstrating right here, they're getting that work done before it was planned. And so in moving a ticket that has been pinned to the schedule, you really need to be able to provide a variance reason, whether that be it finished before the plan, whether it be they had labor that was sick. We have a number of items that you can choose from, and that will also supplement the data that rolls up into the analytics later on as you extract the reports to the owner. And so that allows you to track if an entity or person is behind or, ahead of schedule. And so we utilize those more than we utilize constraints, because then that allows us to track the availability to avoid constraints, if that makes sense. So that's what we utilize a little bit more, and that seems to work for us. But it is flexible depending on what your overall goal in analyzing the activities on site is. So, and constraints might be used more for the superintendents and people boots on the ground. So.
Yeah, certainly gives me a case to explain, where we are and why a particular activity is missing, because that, like you're saying, using that variance reason there with that particular activity, I can tie this back to a constraint if that's the case, and then just be able to say, hey, look, here it is in the workflow, away we go. But yeah, you can pull reports, as like you're getting to, Talia, as you do this several times, as activities are missing, and you as the owner, you have an owner's dashboard that you can pull up and understand which contractors are failing, which contractors are hitting their promises, and get an overall project health from touch plan.
Right.
Cool. Yeah, so I think that's really the long and the short of it. Kelsey, I'll kick it back over to y'all for questions. And Talia, unless there's anything you want to add on top, but I think we generally showed a way of many that we can collaborate as a superintendent and an owner's rep with around a single source of truth. That's actually a part of my own planning and communication cadence as a leader on the job site.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I just kind of want to supplement is that, you know, in my experience with integrating the owner into the schedule and being able to show them this interface and actively include them, is that with our specific owner, they aren't so concerned with a lot of the granular aspects, and they really do like to look at the analytics and the reports more so than the actual constraints, et cetera, et cetera. And we might want to show what the analytics look like and what the reports look like, because that's something that you could greatly customize to what the owner is looking for. And we have the owner insights that's loading here, and it shows success rates. The as I was stating before, let's see, we've got that loading. So it will show the overall project timeline, and once this loads, you will be able to see the baseline activities that were mapped out, as well as where you are progressing in the project, and you can see that there with the project timelines. And then it will also, correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, map out the milestones that we're carrying. So it really does bring everything into a higher level if your owner is not so versed in the planning software or planning activities that you normally would keep track of when you're on site. And then we do have here on that bottom left side the % promise complete, where it tracks the number of items that have been met as promised by date. And then you could really work through the project health on if a lot of those projects are, or not the projects, but the activities are being met on time, and being able to then have the option to go more into a granular level, as Andrew was talking about, where the superintendent will then go through the activities and reasoning as to why any of those activities were late or early. So.
Yep. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, super quick. I've got this dashboard completely packed with data right now, so it might be a little slow, but for, you know, and this is just touch plan enterprise wide, but for you as an owner within your own program, these are all the tiles that you'll be able to use, customize, and generally just get a snapshot of how well your contractors are doing and how well your projects are doing. But I mean, as you can see, we have projects all over the world, all over the US right now, and all over the world as well. Quite a few in Australia once that populates here. But yeah, we have an owner's facing dashboard for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I have had a couple questions come in while y'all were presenting, so I can dive into those. So this first one, I'm going to pitch it to you, Talia. So what do owners get out of using TouchPlan? I know you've kind of touched on that already, but if you had to sum it up, what would you say?
I think that's a really great question. Speaking from my experience with the California project, as I had stated before, they are not very familiar with large-scale construction projects, and they're not familiar with a lot of the contractors or activities that are involved in getting contributing to the success of, you know, going through construction or demo or abatement. So it really does offer a way for them to visualize exactly how many tickets kind of contribute into the activities of abatement. Who is doing what? It's one thing when you have a discussion and you sit down in a Zoom meeting or in a face-to-face meeting and you explain these things to the client or the owner, but you know, everybody has different learning experiences, and for, let's say, 1 out of 3 of my clients that I speak with on a weekly and daily basis, I need to be able to sit down with them and show them who is on site, who is doing physical work. And TouchPlan allows me to do that because then I can go into the user interface and kind of explain to them, you know, it's color coded by electrical or, you know, by person, et cetera, and really explain to them the implications behind each person's work. So I think that adequately answers the question, and it really allows me to kind of help them visualize what is going on.
Awesome. Awesome. And I kind of piggyback off of that to another question that I'll pitch to you. So what level of involvement should owners expect to have when it comes to using the software and kind of being hands-on?
So I think that really depends on the owner. Prior to getting them involved in TouchPlan, I would suggest that you sit down with them, have a chat on what their comfortability with planning is, first of all, and that gives you an indication into the level of detail to provide to them and the level of explanation that you need to include within the overall analysis or review of the schedule on a weekly basis. You also need to ask them, you know, if they do have experience with reviewing construction work, architectural work, or even schedules, what has their past involvement looked like, and what is their goal in how they want to track the activities that are going on site or that are going on site. So really it depends on the owner, but I would say that you really need to be able to sit down and have that discussion with them, run through what TouchPlan looks like, how it differs from other scheduling softwares, and how it actually can line up with other scheduling softwares, because we can export into P6 and we can, you know, have those milestones match up between different types of software. So it really depends on the owner, but I think one of the things that we see with TouchPlan is that its flexibility allows you to chat with them and figure out a method that works best for their involvement, whether that be on a more granular level or whether it be on a level which I utilize, where I go in, extract reports and extract analyses and go over it with them in a separate meeting.
Awesome. That makes a ton of sense. And Andrew, I guess, you know, giving that contractor's perspective as a former superintendent, kind of same question, but on the flip side, what's your ideal amount of involvement from owners? Does it depend on the project type? Does it matter what stage of the project? What are your thoughts on if you could have it ideally? Owners involved?
I'd say early is better, but it's not so much quantity but quality. I'd say on involvement. It really just helping feed me with the right information that I need to go build. You know, I get it, changes happen on a project. There's incomplete design. It's sort of a common thread throughout the industry right now. But just helping me work through that and sort of meeting the contractor, whoever they are, where they're at with their capability, and really just kind of stepping over the wall a bit and helping collaborate to come to a solution is really what we're looking for from a level of engagement. A one-way downhill conversation, it may be comfortable on one side, but let's have a two-way conversation and figure out the problem together. So I'd say more quality than quantity. If we don't ever talk during the project, it's because I'm doing my job great, and everything is just clearly defined and laid out. The drawings are solid, the specs are solid, and I'm capable of running all those things. I have the tools to do that. And we don't talk until the end of the project because I'm handing you the keys and you're happy, and great, that's fantastic. Like I would certainly say, like let's start collaborating a bit, and let's start using a platform that helps us have data-driven conversations across our organizations to get better.
Yeah, definitely. I know a recent site visit that we did, I kind of asked the same question to the superintendent. He's like, hey, listen, as long as I'm getting my questions answered, in a timely fashion and things keep moving forward, I'm happy with that. So it sounds like it's really all about collaboration.
Yeah, definitely. And there's even coaching that has to happen too. I think one of the best owners meetings I've had was when a young owners rep, really sharp owners rep, pulled me into her office and showed me my touch plan, showed me my plan for a particular scope. And she was like, Andrew, what are you driving towards right now? There's no milestone out. Like, help me understand your plan. And the reality was that I didn't understand my plan. So we sat down together and kind of worked, massaged it a little bit. And I went back to the drawing board and was like, hey, okay, look, here it is. Here's actually what we're going to be doing. Because I hadn't been paying enough attention to that particular scope and that particular area of the project. So you can have those conversations as well. They're nothing to be dreaded by any means, because one, we both approached it from the right standpoint of, how do we do this better? And two, we were able to put data behind it.
Absolutely. I guess sort of related to this, but Talia, I'll ask you this question too that came in. So what kind of support and training is needed for an owner to be able to use TouchPlan? Do they need any kind of experience with scheduling beforehand? Does that help, or can they kind of just hit the ground running with a little bit of training?
I believe they can hit the ground running. I really do. I believe that in comparison to P6 or Microsoft Project, I've been told by my clients that it's a lot easier and less of a curveball trying to learn TouchPlan, where P6 has so many different options that they have to kind of get used to, or different columns, etc. And it's not visual for the most part, depending on how you pull your schedule. I mean, there's the Gantt charts, etc. Yes, but with TouchPlan, there's greater flexibility in reports that are being able to be pulled, as well as it's kind of bringing a lot of those aspects from P6 and project down to a level that is more visually appealing and more visually understandable on first glance. And I think it reflects a lot of aspects, and this is going to be kind of odd to liken it to, but a lot of aspects to a Google Calendar, if you will, where it's easy to just click a button and look into what the details of a ticket looks like. It's easy to create a ticket, and it's kind of easy to look around and figure out without having looked at the user guide. So I think that the learning curve or the training timeline for TouchPlan, in my experience, has been, I mean, about a week max to get the basics down. I mean, you could really even do it in a day, but utilizing it and setting up a process on what your long range schedule looks like will take maybe about a week, because you need that collaboration with not only your owner and how they are going to read it, but how they are going to then either communicate with their subcontractors, the superintendents, etc., or not, So it's a fairly short training period, a week. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know we're always preaching ease of use here, so that's definitely good to hear from the owner side too.
Yeah, and before you move to the next question, I do want to say that one of the things that I've heard from my owner team is that they really love being able to just click that help button and have somebody help them within 15 minutes if they are stuck on something, or even going into the user guide, and the user guide has like these short little videos on how to do something, or even short blurbs on explaining what the usage of, let's say, a constraint or how to pull up roles is. So that's been very helpful to my owner team so far.
Awesome. Yeah, I know customer success is huge for us too, and making sure that help is available within a few minutes at any time. So that's great to hear too. Have another question. Andrew, I'm going to pitch this to you. It's a little in depth with TouchPlan. So on a project that is multiple years long, how does TouchPlan keep up with milestone dates such as commissioning and completion of the project like a CPM schedule does.
Yeah, perfect. Great question. Kelsey, can you pass screen share back to me?
Yep, let me change presenters. I think you should be good to go, Andrew.
All right, cool. Yeah, you back to touch plan. So to answer that question, our milestones feature is something that not only lives within touch plan, but it's something you can upload back into P6 and sort of align your touch plan with your master schedule. It really gives you just a solid idea of where you're planning vice what your P6 is telling you should be doing. Now, what I have here, I've got a milestone that I set in this demo environment. I said ready for piers, right? We're doing site work before we were ready to start drilling piers for a foundation, structural foundation. What I did is I can tie that directly to an external schedule ID to move that back to my master schedule program. And two, I pinned it to my timeline. So I can remove that from my timeline up top and I'll put it right back up there so you see how that worked. So there it is. So now I've got ready for piers. This milestone is tied to my timeline. And if I go back here, if I go to structure, that milestone is right here, ready for piers. And then that kicks off these activities that I have for drill piers. So if you imagine this from that micro example, doing that across your major milestones, you're ready for superstructure, ready for your dry-in, steel top out, so ready for landscaping, that sort of thing. It's sort of those major project milestones as you go down the line. And then for commissioning as well. Managing touch plan, managing your commissioning in touch plan is a best practice as you go yellow through blue tags. It's something that it's kind of a project in and of itself. Anytime, especially in data center commissioning or semiconductor manufacturing is starting to get big. But heavy commercial type projects where you get a lot of switch gear and a lot of mechanical systems, commissioning it's a project in and of itself. And managing that here in conjunction with everything else that's going on the project, specifically as it pertains to logistics or your site lighting, to where people can and cannot be on a project because you're commissioning a certain piece of equipment. You tie it all together, and the best way to do that is one, creating a plan for it, just like kind of what you see here, but two, having those major commissioning milestones pinned to your timeline.
Thank you for that. Next question I've got. So how is touch plan different from a master schedule like P6, or even if you're using Microsoft projects?
Yeah, I can do this and change what's happening that quickly. I would say
that's definitely a plus.
Right, like, I mean, watch me go, right? I'm not breaking logic ties. I don't have to have a 4-day crash course in P6. Project is obviously a little easier, but I don't, and I can do this all in real time. Talia and I can be right here in the exact same plan, talking about how we hit to a particular milestone. I've got my role, she has hers, and we're moving activities around in touch plan together. So that's really the biggest way we're different from P6, from Microsoft Project, because we're actually building a production flow. And I think I heard it said pretty well that managing a project from a CPM standpoint gives you a best guess at best. It rarely actually tells you exactly how in the sequence of project is going to go. This gives you a real-time view and a capability to not just build a schedule, but to generate a production system.
Yeah. And to kind of piggyback off of that, when you do those live changes, it not only reflects it on the web browser, but also on the apps. And you could access it through your phone, your iPad. I know a lot of our construction folks who were doing some electrical work on site in a basement were making changes to the touch plan schedule as they were on site, reviewing where their workers are, and these are superintendents going in, reviewing where their workers are at the moment with an activity. If that's, being pushed back, they can go into their iPad, make that change live, and you can't do that with P6 or project. You really, with some of the people that I've worked with, I've seen them print out the 11 by 17 P6 poll from last month or something like that. And some of those dates may have changed. You don't have the live changes. You can go in with TouchPlan and really just, instead of having a poll, I mean, you could print it out if you would like to, but just having it on your phone, having it on an iPad, making that live change, and calling somebody up and saying, hey, just check out the schedule, I changed it really quickly right now, is completely different than what you would do with a master schedule with P6 or project.
Yep. Definitely, that's good. Yeah, I would say you could take it to the field with you in real time. You have TouchPlan Mobile, m.touchplan.io is the web address, and you can see a live view, a list view of everything that's scheduled on your project by role by day.
Yeah, I know one way that I like to think about it, it's very simplistic, but it kind of sticks with me, is I think the master schedule, it's like your map, and then TouchPlan is like your daily GPS of how to get there. That's where you're doing, like, that's what's going to get you to that end goal. So that's what I like to think about, but you can add color to that if that makes sense.
Turn by turn. Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. So another question here, and I think this kind of relates to the owner and the GC side. So one thing we talk about is establishing a why for using the software, why it's important, and maybe that's collaboration, predictability, all of the above. How do y'all establish buy-in at the field level for people who maybe are resistant, maybe they're stuck in their old ways, on the owner side and the GC side? Talia, I'll start with you. How do you get buy-in?
Well, I actually have a really great example of this. I have, on my client side, I have 3 points of contacts for a lot of decision-making processes. One of the 3 was completely resistant to any kind of new technology. Not because she doesn't like technology, but because it's another thing to learn, because it's another thing to keep track of, and has told me specifically that she will not be logging into TouchPlan. She hasn't logged into TouchPlan, okay? But in asking her why, it was really just a reason of, I'm too busy to look at the schedule. I said, okay, well, that's fine. So then what we'll be able to do is, we have these weekly meetings anyways. So what I'll do is just do a poll of the overall schedule and review it with you. Milestone dates, anything that you're interested in. Because if you don't have the time to go into TouchPlan, we're still going to review it, because one way or another, you need to be on top of what's happening in your project. You need to have these schedule updates. And a lot of the times, you can try as you may to have conversations about some of the changes or updates, but if you're making a live change on site and I need a decision from my client, then I'm still going to go with, to her with my TouchPlan schedule, and that seems to work. She doesn't go in on a granular level to the interface that we're viewing right now, but she is interested in the milestones. She is interested in looking at various analytics and how the activities are met on time or late, or et cetera, et cetera. And this method seems to work for her, in that we get together on a weekly or a monthly basis and go over what has changed, what she's interested in, et cetera. So that's how I've tackled it so far.
Awesome. And Andrew, what about on your side? How do you get buy-in from people who might be resistant?
Don't beat them over the head with it. I think, Talia, it's generally your approach too, from what I gathered. But use it as an extension of your own leadership on a project. Don't use it as a tool it's not a quick fix. It's not snake oil. It's not something that is going to solve all the problems on a job site. It's not even close to that. It's really just a way for the leadership on a project to communicate, plan with, and collaborate everyone across the job. So really extend that layer of inclusion that goes with this, and generally just kind of use it as a better way to lead your project. Things you're already doing, just make it simpler.
Perfect. I'm going to jump backwards real quick. I had a follow-up question come up. So what happens in TouchPlan when you move a task or group of tasks out a week? Does it push everything out connected to it? Is TouchPlan schedule in 10-week windows, sprints, or is the entire project in TouchPlan?
Yeah,
that's layered.
Yeah, no, it's really however you want to do it. It's not, I mean, you can put the entire project in TouchPlan, or you can make each phase. I'll show you what a phase looks like, and you still see my deal. You can make each one of these phases a 10-week sprint, however you like to do it, which would also work great for the design use case, and tying design to construction operations. But yeah, really, it's however you want to crack that nut.
Gotcha. And so when you move a task out, does it move, does it push everything out connected to it? That was another part of that question.
Yeah,
No.
another part of that. So let me get back to go to my healthcare environment. So there's no hard logic to this, which is certainly by design. So if I have this cluster of activities right here, and for example, if that milestone, I figure out that milestone is moving, I'm taking this, I'm selecting them all, and I'm moving it out together. Just take a mass select, and then if this is tied to that, these two activities, right? Because I'm generating flow across crews on a project. Now I make another assessment to figure out whether or not that works from a flow standpoint. Because what I'm looking at right now is my framing and drywall contractor. So what I'll do is I'll come here, filter by my framing and drywall contractor, and look at them up here on my crew size assessment, and determine whether or not that change, what that does to the project as a whole, this plan as a whole, and the project as a whole, from crew size requirements. So if I just move this activity out by 2 days, instead of having generally a crew size of 2, now I've got to bump up. I've kind of created a slinky effect on my project, which is really detrimental to generating flow. So to answer the question more concisely, no, it does not automatically move everything out, because there's so many logic ties to be made, and sort of that with the level of detail we're scheduling here, it would just get out of hand to manage. But what we do allow for is to plan and replan based on crew sizes, and make a solid assessment of what changes are doing to the flow on our project. Hope that answers. Yeah. If there's a follow-up to that, I'd be happy to answer right away.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll let you know if one comes in. But so we got another owner-focused one. I'll pitch this to you, Talia. So as an owner, one of my concerns is adding yet another software requirement onto my GC/project team. How do I aid in buy-in? So you kind of talked about buy-in already, but I guess from a full tech stack perspective, does that look the same?
That's an interesting question. So can you repeat it really quickly just to make sure?
Yeah. As an owner, one of my concerns is adding yet another software requirement onto my GC/project team. How do I aid with buy-in?
I think you aid with buy-in in that, this is really, again, going back to something that you could utilize on site. It's a fix where, you can invite a lot of different crew members to collaborate on software or collaborate on the schedule. It's live. It's something that you could have many different people kind of review in a meeting. You can review it on site and make those changes. I do understand that, you know, bringing in yet another software requirement can be daunting, because then you think about the training, what is the financial aspects, etc. But you do get more of a reward by utilizing this sort of collaborative software than you would for, you know, just utilizing P6. And hopefully that adequately answers their question. But I've been able to see a lot of success in solving a lot of on-site problems in a quicker manner by just relying on the collaboration aspect of TouchPlan. So it really does save a lot of time and energy later down the line.
Yeah, I think you answered that great. And Andrew, did you ever get any pushback from a tech stack perspective, like not another software we're adding? Did you see anything like that?
Totally. And you know what, sort of the brutal truth is not everyone automatically will adopt it. You know, not everyone will take to it, and that's fine. You know, it's simple enough for me as a superintendent. I can take over and run their role for them. But by and large, your more sophisticated trades are absolutely going to jump in head first, specifically your MEP trades. I had really good buy-in from a concrete contractor. Steel ironworkers did pretty well with it. Painters may or may not. There's actually a pretty sophisticated painting outfit here in Dallas-Fort Worth that's picking up TouchPlan and about to run with us, and using at an enterprise level as for a subcontractor themselves. But yeah, I mean, it's just like anything else. It's not a sales pitch from me as a superintendent to get people to use TouchPlan. Really, it's hey, this is what I'm using. This is how I'm managing the project. You can follow me along with this, or I can drag you. But you know, we're going in the same direction together.
Awesome. I think that looks like it's all the questions I've got for y'all. So I will get y'all's contact info up here. Andrew and Talia, if y'all want to close it out, but thank you guys. That's all for me for right now.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Talia. Good to see you again.
Yeah, thank you very much, Andrew. And if anybody else has questions on how we utilize TouchPlan in our specific projects, then please just reach out to us if you have any additional questions. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.